Behind the quiet routine of a single mother's life, Sarah Chen was about to uncover something far darker than betrayal, a presence whispering truths no living person should know. It began with a crayon drawing from her 5-year-old daughter, and spiraled into a nightmare that blurred the line between imagination and the impossible. This is her story. Welcome to Behind Closed Doors, where we share true stories of deception, hidden fears, and the moments when reality cracks open. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what comes next. This story is unsettling on every level. Now, let's dive into how one innocent drawing unveiled a secret that had been waiting decades to be heard. Sarah Chen sat frozen at her kitchen table, staring at the crayon drawing her 5-year-old daughter Emma had just handed her. The paper trembled in her hands. The drawing showed a little girl, presumably Emma, holding hands with a tall, shadowy figure. But that wasn't what made Sarah's blood run cold. In the corner of the drawing, rendered in surprisingly accurate detail for a 5-year-old, was a red car wrapped around a telephone pole. And standing next to the wreckage was a woman with long black hair. Sarah's sister, Michelle, had died in a car accident 3 years ago, in a red Honda Civic, wrapped around a telephone pole on Highway 47. Emma had been 2 years old. She had never been told the details. There were no photos of the accident in the house. Sarah had made absolutely certain of that. "That's very pretty, sweetie," Sarah managed, her voice barely steady. "Who's this?" She pointed to the shadowy figure. "That's Mr. Whispers," Emma said matter-of-factly, already reaching for another crayon. "He's my friend." And this?" Sarah pointed to the car crash. Emma looked up, her wide brown eyes innocent and clear. "That's Aunt Michelle's bad day. Mr. Whispers said she didn't suffer. He said she wanted you to know that." Sarah's coffee mug slipped from her other hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. That was the moment Sarah Chen realized that something in her home was terribly, impossibly wrong. And it would only get worse. It had started 3 weeks earlier, on an unremarkable Tuesday evening. Sarah had been making dinner, spaghetti, Emma's favorite, when she heard her daughter giggling in the living room. Not unusual. Emma was a happy child, prone to fits of laughter over the smallest things. But when Sarah peeked around the corner, Emma was sitting cross-legged on the carpet, having what appeared to be a very animated conversation with empty air. "Mommy, this is Mr. Whispers," Emma had announced, when she noticed Sarah watching. "He just moved in." Sarah had smiled. Imaginary friends were normal at this age. Healthy, even. Her own childhood therapist, back when Sarah's parents were divorcing, had said that imaginary friends help children process complex emotions. "That's nice, honey. Is Mr. Whispers staying for dinner?" "He says he doesn't eat food anymore," Emma replied seriously. "He says he eats secrets instead." Sarah had laughed at that, finding it charmingly odd. Kids said the strangest things. She wasn't laughing anymore. The first real warning sign came 4 days after Mr. Whispers arrived. Sarah had been putting Emma to bed, going through their usual routine. Pajamas, teeth brushing, 3 stories. Then, lights out. As Sarah tucked the blanket around her daughter's small body, Emma had grabbed her hand. "Mommy, Mr. Whispers wants to know why you're still sad about the baby." Sarah's entire body went rigid. "What baby, sweetheart?" "The baby that didn't get born. The one from before I was here. He says it wasn't your fault." The room seemed to tilt. Sarah gripped the bed frame to steady herself. 7 years ago, before Emma, Sarah had been pregnant. She and her then-husband David had been thrilled, already picking out names, painting a nursery. Then, at 19 weeks, Sarah had miscarried. The grief had been devastating. The guilt even worse. She'd blamed herself. Had she exercised too much? Eaten something wrong? Stressed too much about work? It had taken 2 years and extensive therapy before she and David felt ready to try again. Emma had been their rainbow baby, their miracle. But they had never told Emma about the miscarriage. She was too young to understand. They'd agreed to wait until she was older, maybe a teenager. "Who told you about that?" Sarah asked, her voice tight. "Nobody told me. Mr. Whispers knows things." Emma yawned, already getting drowsy. He knows lots of things about our family. He says he's been watching for a long time. Sarah had barely slept that night. The next morning, Sarah had tried to rationalize it. Maybe Emma had overheard a conversation between Sarah and David. Maybe Sarah had talked about it on the phone, and Emma had been listening from around a corner. Kids picked up on more than adults realized. That had to be it. But then Emma started knowing other things. Small things that were individually explainable, but collectively disturbing. She knew that Sarah's father, Emma's grandfather, who had died when Emma was 18 months old, had collected vintage pocket watches. Emma had never seen his collection. It had been sold after his death. But she drew pictures of them, rendered in surprising detail. She knew that Sarah's mother had been engaged to someone else before marrying Sarah's father, a man named Thomas who had died in Vietnam. Sarah's mother had mentioned Thomas exactly once, during a wine-heavy conversation years before Emma was born. She knew that David's brother had spent time in rehab for prescription pill addiction, something the family didn't discuss, something Emma had absolutely never been told. Every time, Emma would say the same thing. Mr. Whispers told me. Sarah's husband David was less concerned. She's 5, Sarah. She's got an active imagination. It's normal, he said one evening after Emma had gone to bed. They were loading the dishwasher, a mundane domestic scene that felt surreal given what Sarah was trying to explain. David. She knew about the miscarriage. She knew about Thomas. She knew about your brother. She could have overheard. She drew Michelle's car accident, the telephone pole, everything. David paused, a plate in his hand. That is weird. But Michelle died 3 years ago. Maybe she saw something back then, when she was 2, and it stuck in her memory. She was 2 years old. We didn't let her see anything. And we certainly didn't tell her Michelle didn't suffer. How would she know that? David set the plate in the dishwasher with more force than necessary. I don't know, Sarah. But I know what you're implying, and imaginary friends aren't ghosts. They're not supernatural. They're neurological. They're a normal part of child development. This doesn't feel normal. You're stressed. The promotion at work, the house renovations, everything with your mom. You're reading too much into this. He closed the dishwasher and turned to face her. Emma is a happy, healthy, creative kid. Don't make her feel like something's wrong with her because she has an imaginary friend. Sarah had wanted to argue, wanted to make him understand the cold dread that had taken up permanent residence in her chest. But she also didn't want to be the paranoid parent, the one who pathologized normal childhood behavior. So she'd nodded and tried to let it go. But it became harder to ignore when Sarah started hearing Emma's nighttime conversations. Their house was small, a 3-bedroom ranch with thin walls. Emma's room was right next to the master bedroom. Sarah had always been able to hear if Emma woke up in the night or called out. Now, she heard entire conversations. At first, they were innocent enough. Emma talking about her day at kindergarten, telling Mr. Whispers about the blocks she'd built or the song they'd learned. One-sided conversations, but normal. Then, they became stranger. "Why don't you like Daddy?" Sarah heard Emma ask one night. Silence. Obviously. Mr. Whispers wasn't real, couldn't respond. But then Emma's voice again. "Because he lies? What does he lie about?" Sarah sat up in bed, her heart pounding. Beside her, David slept soundly, oblivious. "About where he goes on Thursdays?" Emma continued. "But he says he goes to the gym." Sarah's blood ran cold. David did go somewhere every Thursday evening. He said it was the gym, his regular racquetball game with his college friend Marcus. But now that Sarah thought about it, he never came home sweaty. Never mentioned the games in detail. And he'd been doing this for months. "Stop it," Sarah whispered to herself. "Stop letting a 5-year-old's imagination make you paranoid." But the seed of doubt had been planted. 2 days later, Sarah was cleaning Emma's room, putting away toys, changing sheets, when she found a photograph under Emma's pillow. It was old, faded at the edges, the kind of photo from decades ago. It showed a young boy, maybe 8 or 9, standing in front of a house. He had dark hair, serious eyes, and a formal, almost old-fashioned suit. Sarah had never seen the photo before, didn't recognize the child or the house. She brought it downstairs where Emma was watching cartoons. "Honey, where did you get this?" Emma glanced over. "Mr. Whispers gave it to me." That's him when he was alive. The room seemed to drop 10 degrees. When he was alive? Uh-huh. He said that was his house, before the bad thing happened. What bad thing? The fire, the one that hurt everybody. Sarah stared at the photograph, her hand shaking slightly. The house in the background did look old. Victorian, maybe. Early 1900s architecture. Emma, where exactly did you get this? I told you. Mr. Whispers gave it to me. But physically, where did you find it? He left it under my pillow, like the tooth fairy. Sarah felt like she was losing her mind. That evening, after Emma was asleep, Sarah did something she immediately felt guilty about. She took the photograph and drove to her mother's house. Linda Chen had lived in this neighborhood for 40 years. If anyone would recognize an old local house, it would be her. Mom, do you recognize this house? Sarah held out the photo. Her mother squinted, holding it close, then far away. Then her expression changed. Where did you get this? Emma had it. Do you know it? Sarah. This is the old Morrison house. It burned down in 1952. Killed a family. There was a boy. She looked up, her face pale. Where did Emma get this? I don't know. That night, Sarah lay awake until dawn, listening to her daughter talk to someone who shouldn't exist about things he couldn't possibly know. Sarah decided to follow David. She felt ridiculous, paranoid, like a character in a bad movie. But Emma's words, or rather, Mr. Whisper's words, had burrowed into her brain like a parasite. What does he lie about? About where he goes on Thursdays? On Thursday evening, David kissed her goodbye as usual. Racquetball with Marcus. I'll be back by 9. Have fun. Sarah waited 15 minutes, then got into her car. She'd asked their neighbor's teenage daughter to watch Emma for a couple hours, saying she had a last-minute work emergency. She followed David's car through town, her heart pounding, half hoping he'd turn toward the gym and prove her suspicions wrong. He didn't. He drove to a neighborhood on the east side of town. A nice neighborhood. Tree-lined streets. Well-maintained houses. He pulled into the driveway of a 2-story colonial with blue shutters. Sarah parked down the street behind a large SUV and watched. David got out of his car, walked to the front door, and knocked. The door opened. A woman stood there. Petite, blonde, maybe 35. She smiled when she saw David. They embraced. Not a friendly hug, an intimate one. His hand on the small of her back, her fingers curling into his shirt. Then they went inside. The door closed. Sarah sat in her car, feeling like the world had tilted off its axis. David was having an affair. Emma's imaginary friend had known, had told her, had been right. Sarah drove home in a daze, paid the babysitter, and sat in her kitchen in the dark. When David came home at 9:15, smelling like cologne and lies, Sarah said nothing. She needed time to think, to plan. But that night she listened to Emma's conversation with Mr. Whispers with new attention. Mommy knows now, Emma said. Did you want her to know? Silence. You did? Why? Silence. Because lies hurt families? That makes sense. Sarah pressed her hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. Over the next week, Mr. Whisper's revelations became more frequent, more specific, more dangerous. Emma started saying things at dinner. Mr. Whispers says Daddy's friend's name is Jennifer. She works at the hospital. David choked on his water. She has a little boy named Tyler. He's 6. David's face went white. Emma, that's enough. We don't talk about people we don't know. But Mr. Whispers knows her. He watches her, too. Sarah felt simultaneously vindicated and terrified. She now had confirmation. Details she could verify. A name. A workplace. A child. But how did Emma know this? How did Mr. Whispers? David left the table early that night, claiming work stress. Sarah spent hours on her laptop after Emma went to bed, researching. She found articles about the Morrison house fire from 1952. 9 people had died. An entire family trapped in their home. The fire had been ruled accidental, a kerosene lamp knocked over. Among the dead was an 8-year-old boy named William Morrison. The article included a single photograph, a formal family portrait. Sarah's hands shook as she zoomed in on the boy's face. It was the same child from the photograph under Emma's pillow. William Morrison, dead for 70 years, and apparently Emma's imaginary friend. Sarah also found Jennifer. It wasn't hard. There was only one Jennifer at St. Mary's Hospital in the right age range. Jennifer Thompson, nurse, divorced. One son named Tyler. Everything Emma had said was true. Sarah confronted David on Saturday morning. Emma was at a play date, the house blessedly empty. Who is Jennifer Thompson? David's face cycled through confusion, then recognition, then fear. How do you answer the question? Sarah, I can explain. How long? David sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. 6 months. It started as just coffee. After work. She understood things you didn't. The stress I was under. Then it became more. You lied to me for 6 months. I know. God, Sarah, I know. I'm so sorry. It's over. I was going to end it. I swear. You're sorry you got caught. No, He looked up at her, and she saw genuine fear in his eyes. How did you find out? Sarah almost laughed. The truth was so absurd she could barely voice it. Emma told me. What? Her imaginary friend, Mr. Whispers. He told her about Jennifer, about Tyler, about all of it. David stared at her like she'd lost her mind. That's impossible. And yet here we are. That night, after David had moved to the guest room and the house had settled into tense, awful silence, Sarah sat on Emma's bed. Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about Mr. Whispers. Emma looked up from her coloring book, serious. He said you would. What else has he said? He says you're going to ask him to leave, but he won't. Not yet. Why not? Because there's still secrets, bad ones, ones that hurt people if they stay secret. What secrets? Emma's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to say them. They're scary. Sarah pulled her daughter close. It's okay, you don't have to. But Emma whispered, anyway. He says, Grandma didn't fall down the stairs by accident. Sarah froze. Her mother, Linda. She'd fallen down her basement stairs 8 months ago. Broken hip, concussion, weeks in the hospital. She'd claimed she lost her footing, reaching for something on a high shelf. What do you mean, not an accident? Mr. Whispers says someone pushed her, someone who wanted her hurt. Who? Emma was crying now. Daddy. He says Daddy did it. Sarah's first instinct was to dismiss it entirely. David would never. He couldn't have. He'd been at work when Linda fell. Except, had he? Sarah tried to remember that day. The call from the hospital. The rush to get there. The chaos. She'd assumed David was at work. But had she actually checked? She pulled out her phone, scrolling back through old messages. Found the date. March 12th. David had texted her at 2:47 p.m. Just heard about your mom. On my way to the hospital. But Linda's fall had happened around 1:30 p.m. Sarah knew because the neighbor who found her had time-stamped the 911 call. David's office was 15 minutes from Linda's house, 20 minutes from the hospital. If he'd been at work when he heard the news, he would have gone straight to the hospital. It should have taken him no more than 20 minutes from whenever he heard. But he didn't arrive at the hospital until 3:30 p.m. 43 minutes after his text. Where had he been? Sarah called David's office the next day, her hands shaking. Hi, this is Sarah Chen, David's wife. I'm trying to sort out some old receipts for taxes, and I need to confirm if David was in the office on March 12th. I have a lunch receipt from that day, and I'm not sure if it was a work meeting or personal. The receptionist was helpful. Too helpful. Let me check his calendar. March 12th. Oh, he had a personal day. Took the whole day off. Sarah's world tilted. Are you sure? Yes, I remember because he took it at the last minute. Said it was for a family thing. Sarah thanked her and hung up. David had lied. He'd been off work, unaccounted for, near Linda's house at the time of her accident. Where were you on March 12th? David looked up from his laptop. They'd been living in cold silence for days, communicating only about Emma. What? March 12th, the day Mom fell. You told me you were at work, but you weren't. You took a personal day. David's face went carefully blank. I had errands. What errands? I don't remember. It was months ago. Try. Sarah, what is this about? Were you at Mom's house that day? The pause was half a second too long. No. Why would I be? Her neighbor saw a car like yours in her driveway, around 1:15 p.m. This was a lie. Sarah was bluffing. But David's reaction told her everything. His face drained of color. I stopped by briefly, to return something she'd lent us. What? A casserole dish. You never mentioned this. It didn't seem important. I was there for 5 minutes, then left. And then what? Then I ran other errands. Bank, post office. I don't remember. Mom fell at 1:30. You were there at 1:15. I didn't push her down the stairs, if that's what you're implying. David stood, anger flashing. Jesus, Sarah. This is insane. You're letting a 5-year-old's imagination. Emma knew you were having an affair before I did. Emma knew about Jennifer, about Tyler, about things she couldn't possibly know. So, when Emma says her imaginary friend told her you pushed my mother down the stairs, I have to consider that maybe, somehow, it's true. David's anger collapsed into something else. Fear. I didn't push her. I swear to God, Sarah. Then what happened? David sank back into his chair, his face in his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. We argued. About what? About the affair. She knew. She'd seen me with Jennifer at a restaurant. Confronted me about it. Said she was going to tell you if I didn't end it. Sarah felt like she was going to be sick. I went to her house to convince her not to. To explain. We were arguing in the kitchen. It got heated. I said things I regret. Then she said she was done talking. Started to walk away. Toward the basement, to get something from storage. David's voice cracked. I followed her, still arguing, still trying to make her understand. She was at the top of the stairs. I grabbed her arm, trying to get her to listen to me. Just grabbed her, but I startled her. She yanked her arm away, lost her balance, and... He couldn't finish. You let her fall. I tried to grab her. I swear I tried. But it happened so fast. 1 second she was there. The next she was at the bottom of the stairs. And you left her there. No. I called 911, anonymously. Made sure help was coming. Then I left before anyone saw me. Sarah stared at her husband. This man she'd thought she knew. And saw a stranger. You let my mother lie there, terrified and injured, because you were covering your ass. I panicked. I know it was wrong. But Sarah, I didn't push her. It was an accident. An accident you caused, that you lied about, for months. I'm sorry, God, I'm so sorry. But Sarah was already walking away. That night, Sarah sat in Emma's room long after her daughter had fallen asleep. I don't know if you're real, she whispered to the empty air. I don't know if you're William Morrison or something else entirely. But if you can hear me, thank you. Thank you for telling the truth when everyone else was lying. The room was silent. Still. But Sarah felt something. A presence. Not malevolent exactly. Just watchful. Why? She asked. Why are you doing this? Emma stirred in her sleep. Murmured something. Sarah leaned closer. He says... Emma's voice was drowsy, barely conscious. He says secrets are like poison. They hurt the people keeping them and the people being lied to. He says his family had secrets, and the secrets killed them. What secrets? His father hurt people. Bad people who deserved it, his father said. But they were still people. And someone found out. Someone angry. Someone who started a fire. Emma's eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused. Mr. Whispers says he doesn't want families to have secrets anymore. That's why he tells. That's why he watches. Because secrets burn everything down. She fell back asleep, leaving Sarah alone with the weight of understanding. Sarah filed for divorce 3 days later. David didn't contest it. Couldn't, really, given everything. The affair, the lies, the role in Linda's accident. Even if accidental, even if not criminal, it was unforgivable. Linda herself, once she knew the truth, told Sarah she didn't want to press charges. It was an accident, she said, though her voice was cold. A terrible accident caused by terrible choices. But I won't have my granddaughter's father in prison. David moved out. Got an apartment across town. Emma would see him on weekends, supervised for now. Jennifer Thompson ended their relationship when she found out about David's deception and the circumstances of Linda's fall. David had lost his marriage, his home, and the respect of everyone who knew him. And through it all, Emma reported that Mr. Whispers watched. Sarah took Emma to 3 different child psychologists over the following months. All of them said the same thing. Emma was developmentally normal, imaginative, creative, bright. Imaginary friends were common. None of them could explain how Emma knew things she couldn't possibly know. Children pick up on more than we realize, one psychologist said. They overhear conversations, notice details, make connections adults miss. What seems supernatural is often just a child's remarkable observation skills. But that didn't explain the photograph. The one of William Morrison. The one from 1952. Sarah had taken it to a local historian, who confirmed it was authentic. An original print, not a reproduction. It had been donated to the Historical Society after the fire, part of a collection of Morrison family artifacts. But all those artifacts were in storage in the Historical Society's climate-controlled vault. No one, especially not a 5-year-old child, could have accessed them. Yet somehow, Emma had that photograph. 6 months after David moved out, on a quiet Sunday morning, Sarah sat with Emma in the backyard. Emma was drawing with chalk on the patio, creating elaborate scenes of houses and families. "Does Mr. Whispers still visit?" Sarah asked carefully. Emma nodded. "Not as much. He says our family doesn't have big secrets anymore. Just small ones. Small ones are okay." "Is he here now?" Emma paused, looked at something Sarah couldn't see, then nodded. "Do you want to talk to him?" Sarah's rational mind screamed that this was absurd, that she was indulging a fantasy, that there was no such thing as ghosts or spirits or supernatural imaginary friends. But she'd learned that sometimes rationality didn't cover everything. "Yes," Sarah said. "I'd like to." Emma smiled. "He says you can ask him anything." Sarah took a breath. "Why did you choose our family?" Emma tilted her head, listening to something only she could hear. "He says he didn't choose you. He watches lots of families. But yours had big secrets. Dangerous ones. The kind that would have hurt more people if they'd stayed hidden. Will you stay?" He says no. His job here is done. Emma's growing up. She won't need him much longer. What happens to you? After? Emma's face grew sad. He says he doesn't know. He just moves on to the next family that needs him. He's been doing this for a long time. Sarah felt an unexpected pang of emotion. Gratitude towards something she didn't understand. "Thank you," she said to the empty air. "Thank you for protecting my family by exposing the truth." Emma smiled. "He says you're welcome. And he says you should tell Emma the truth when she's older, about her sister who didn't get born. He says secrets aren't bad if you share them at the right time, in the right way. It's only when you hide them forever that they become poison." Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. "I will. I promise." Emma was 6 now, 1st grade, thriving. She rarely mentioned Mr. Whispers anymore. When Sarah asked about him, Emma would shrug and say, "He's busy with other families." David had visitation every other weekend. He and Emma had rebuilt a relationship. Fragile, but real. He'd gone to therapy, quit his job, started over. They'd never be a family again, but they could be civil, cooperative. Linda had fully recovered from her fall. She and Sarah had grown closer, their relationship no longer strained by unspoken tensions and David's manipulations. Sarah had started dating someone new, slowly, carefully. A co-worker named James who was kind and honest and didn't keep secrets. One evening, while tucking Emma into bed, Sarah noticed a drawing on the nightstand. It showed Emma holding hands with a shadowy figure. But the figure was waving goodbye, walking away toward a horizon rendered in purple crayon. "Is this Mr. Whispers?" Sarah asked. Emma nodded sleepily. "He came to say goodbye last night. He said he found a new family who needs him, one with really big secrets." "Did he say anything else?" "He said thank you for listening." "And he said—" Emma yawned. "He said our family is going to be okay now, because we tell each other the truth." Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead. "We do, and we will. Always. Love you, Mommy." "Love you too, baby." Sarah turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at her daughter's peaceful face. Then she whispered to the darkness, "Wherever you are, William Morrison, I hope you find peace. Thank you for giving us ours." The house was silent. Still. But somewhere, in a dimension Sarah would never understand, a little boy from 1952 moved on to the next family, the next set of secrets, the next truth that needed telling. Because secrets, as he'd learned in Fire and Death so long ago, always burn everything down eventually. Better to expose them in the light, before they consume everything you love in the dark. Some families are haunted by ghosts. Sarah's family had been haunted by something far more dangerous. The lies they told themselves, the secrets they kept, the truths they were too afraid to face. It had taken a 5-year-old's imaginary friend, real or not, supernatural or psychological, it didn't matter, to hold a mirror to those secrets. And in that reflection, Sarah had found both devastation and liberation. Her marriage was over. But it had been built on lies anyway. Her mother had been hurt. But now she knew the truth, and could heal without wondering. Her daughter had been a conduit for uncomfortable revelations. But now she was free from the weight of her family's hidden darkness. As Sarah closed Emma's door and walked to her own room, she thought about William Morrison, a boy who died in a fire caused by his family's secrets. Whether he was a ghost, a psychological manifestation, or something else entirely, didn't matter. What mattered was the lesson. Secrets don't protect the people you love. They destroy them. Slowly. Silently. Surely. Until everything burns. Sarah had survived her family's fire. Had walked through the flames and come out the other side with truth instead of ash. And somewhere, she hoped, William Morrison could finally rest. His work, at least for the Chen family, was complete. So what would you do if a secret from the past came knocking on your door the way it did for David? Would you have faced what you ran from, or tried to escape it all over again? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Behind Closed Doors. We post new true stories every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, Behind Closed Doors.